Soulmate relationships are built. Dream careers are built. Resilient people are built, often with the pieces of their own greatest failures, mistakes, and mishaps. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going. What is self-doubt? What does it come from? If I'm not wearing makeup, I look like a naked mole rat. And I... All right, y'all, welcome to the Talk More with Laura podcast, and happy Friday. It's Friday in Nashville, and the weather is beautiful here. It's actually Easter weekend, and my parents are actually coming in town this weekend, so I am really excited to see them, and this week has been a really good week. It's crazy that April is almost over. I feel like this whole month has flown by, but I'm really excited for this summer. And I'm also so excited for this episode today because it's something that has been on my heart for a while. And I just have a lot of good things to share with you guys. I got my notes up, but let's get into it. Silly, goofy thing of the week. I think I already just shared it with you, but my parents are coming this weekend. And so my family actually lives in Georgia, except for my sister, but my parents live in northern Georgia, and I don't get to see them a whole lot. This summer, I will be traveling there a couple times for weddings and just like we have a lake trip coming up, but I don't get to see my parents that much. So it's going to be really fun to show them my apartment, and they haven't seen my apartment or anything yet. So it'll be fun to just catch up with them. Tyler and I are grabbing dinner with them tomorrow, and we're going to church on Sunday. I go to the Belonging Co. So that'll be a really good, just fun time to see them. And it's super windy in Nashville. I hope the weather is good for us. But today it's super sunny, so I'm definitely going on a run after this. But yeah, let's get into the episode, you guys. Today's episode is going to be all about self-doubt. And I'm going to actually share some personal stories with you all and kind of get into how to overcome self-doubt, kind of define what that means. And then we will also get into some other questions. You guys have been asking a lot of questions on my Instagram. So if we have time at the end, I might just ask answer some random questions that might not really have to do with the topic of today. But without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to start with my scoliosis story because I've had scoliosis since 7th grade, and it's actually something that kind of ties into this topic. And also, I share about my scoliosis a little bit earlier on when I first started my account, but now that it's grown, I have a lot of new faces and people that view my content. And I actually had a couple of you ask on my Instagram if I had scoliosis, which was funny because you can tell at certain angles that I have it. And so some of you probably just picked up on that. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity to share that story and then kind of go into how it all ties into this topic of self-doubt. So yeah, when I was in 7th grade, I'll never forget it. We were at school and they had us watch this video that was basically saying how scoliosis is very rare. It's probably likely that you don't have it, but we have to go into the locker room and check everybody for scoliosis. So it was like this protocol where they had to do it. And so I remember watching the video and they're like, don't be freaking out about it. No big deal. It's rare. It's just something we have to do, which is interesting looking back on it because they prefaced it to be so not scary at all and was not expecting to get diagnosed. When I say diagnosed, that sounds so dramatic, like I had cancer or something, but was not expecting that. that day. So I get in the locker room and the teachers look at all of our backs and they're like, wait, Sherry, come here. They like wave down other people, come look at my back. And they're like, yeah, she has a curve. And so little 13-year-old me is freaking out. I'm like, what does this mean? What's happening? So I got home and I ended up scheduling an appointment with a doctor. So my mom and I went to a spinal doctor, and so basically just had to get MRIs, x-rays to see the curvature. And I honestly don't remember the actual degree of the curve. Like, I was actually texting my mom before this episode and I was like, do you remember what my curve was? And we both really couldn't remember what it was. I know we have it somewhere in the archives, but not that important. It wasn't bad enough to need surgery. It was just there. And but it was bad enough to where I needed to wear a brace. And so long story short, I ended up having to get fitted for this brace that I had to wear when I slept. And it was like, I had to wear this kind of like tight compression thing over my abdomen. And then it was this like turtle shell. Like, my dad would call it the turtle shell. Like when I'd get ready for bed, they'd like come in and like help me put it on. And he's like, all right, turtle shell time. And it was very uncomfortable because I had to, it was just like it was rock solid. It wasn't like this thing that you could really move around in. And essentially my curve was pushing towards the left. So like my spine went like straight, curved to the left, and then went back to normal. I think I have a slight curve on my upper back, but it's the curve is more on the lower part of my back. And so the shell basically pushed my spine to the right. And so I had to do that for a year. I had to sleep in it. And it was so uncomfortable, you guys. My parents felt so bad for me. And there were nights where my back would go numb because it's just uncomfortable. It's like they're basically trying to reform your spine. And I'm kind of going through puberty. And so that's the idea, that if they can catch it when you're younger and you wear the spine, it can kind of correct your spine back into place. And so I had to wear it for a whole year. And there were nights where I would like take it off and sleep without it because it was so uncomfortable. And it was just not a fun time. But I think I went back. It was so long ago. It's honestly just a blur. But I remember going back into the doctor, and it did improve. My back is not perfect. It's still kind of, the same. So I just lived my life normally after that. Played sports, was active, played volleyball in high school. College was great. And then fast forward to the present moment when I started my weight training journey. I obviously was learning all of the like barbell back squats, deadlifts, all of that sort of thing. And my back really never bothered me in that process. I did notice that there was some shifting going on. I definitely have some imbalances. If you look at my back, like if I'm in a bikini, you can tell that my hips are kind of like misaligned and one of them's higher than the other. And so basically it's been like over the past 10 years, I have to consistently go to chiropractors and physical therapists consistently because essentially my back is constantly compressing on muscles that aren't supposed to be compressed on. So as someone that has scoliosis, you kind of have to always maintain it. And so I get regular massages, like deep tissue massages in my back, and just to like loosen everything up. And I go to the chiropractor often as well. So like it's basically just something that I have to maintain for the rest of my life. And it is what it is. There's literally nothing I can do about it. And I think the hardest part is sitting for long periods of time. And that's actually why I feel like God has used this story for my current job, because I remember being like working in corporate, I would get so uncomfortable sitting at the desk, like working at a computer. yeah, it's just hard for me to get comfortable, basically. Like if I'm sitting still for a long period of time at a desk, at my computer, on a plane, if I have like a 5-hour plane flight, I get extremely uncomfortable. I'm always having to move around. Like even if I'm falling asleep, it's just uncomfortable. And I felt really validated in that because every doctor I've seen, chiropractor, physical therapist, they're all like, yeah, I mean, that's just how it kind of is when you have scoliosis because you're constantly your body's just constantly working against you because your spine is pushing where it's not supposed to be pushing. And it's harder for people with scoliosis to sit still and it gets really tight and uncomfortable really fast. And so I'm just constantly having to maintain it with that, constantly stretching. And it's just something I have to maintain. But I remember looking back on like corporate America where I was like, I knew I didn't want to sit at a desk because of the obvious reasons of just like wanting to be on my feet. I was active. I like to be people facing, but then I also was like, this is going to sound so weird, but I like physically feel so uncomfortable when I sit at a desk. Like physically it is painful for me. And so I feel like the Lord really used that because then when I got into personal training, I learned a lot about like form and my back and how that plays into training and doing things like lunges. And I just learned a lot about anatomy. And so I feel like that also served me in my knowledge of like how to do things properly, like what bothers me, what doesn't. And there are times where like if I do really heavy RDLs, that will really mess my back up. All of my stress is held in my back and my neck. So like anytime I'm really stressed, I get super tight. And so I have to get massages to kind of upkeep it. But yeah, I got a lot of questions about that of like, how do you like, what does that mean for lifting? And it's nothing like, I know every person that has scoliosis is different. So my story might resonate with you, or maybe it doesn't because every curve is different. But essentially it's just, you just have to listen to your body. And that's kind of what I have to do when I lift. And I have imbalances, so I try to do my best to kind of build my muscles on my right side because on my left side of my back, it's protruding out. Like all of my muscles are kind of crushed together on that side. So if you look at my back, you can see. But if I'm doing yoga, there's certain positions that bother it. And so it's really just something I have to pay attention to. But I share this story to kind of go into self-doubt because, well, first, let's just define it, and I'm going to kind of tie this all together. So what is self-doubt? What does it come from? And self-doubt is really developed through life experiences. It's developed through childhood, your past failures, comparison, fear of judgment, not being good enough. Self-doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. And that really stuck with me. So when I was doing some research on self-doubt, what happens a lot of times is that this is kind of tied into your thought patterns as well, where you have things that pop up in your head that will say, well, I can't do that because what will other people think? Or I can't do that because that person's better than me in that. I remember when I first started in personal training, I was like, there are so many other girls out there trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do on Instagram. Who is going to care what I have to say? I had so many self-doubt thoughts when I started my business because I was like, I'm not good enough. Like there are so many other people out there that are doing this way better than I ever could. And I didn't feel like I had what it took to start my business. I didn't feel like I had the look for it. I didn't feel confident enough. And so confidence, self-doubt, comparison, all of it kind of ties together. And a lot of times it can sound like the voices in your head can sound like, I'm not qualified. Who am I to do this? They're better than me. And I remember having those thoughts when I first started my business. I had a lot of the who am I to do this thoughts, like where I was like, who am I to tell someone how to work out? Who am I to educate somebody else on strength training? Who am I to say what I think they should eat? Or who am I to have a stance on this, because there's so many other people out there that are trying to do this, and how am I ever going to stick out? How am I ever going to... those thoughts were in my head constantly, and I think this also kind of ties into imposter syndrome. And I had extreme imposter syndrome. When I first started my business, I was just like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I had this strong feeling that I needed to be in fitness. And that is why I quit my job and got into fitness in the first place, because I just felt like the Lord was really speaking to me and saying that I needed to take this leap. But it was a process. It didn't happen overnight, because when I quit my job, I worked at the front desk at Orange Theory. I had like 3 other side jobs to pay the bills. Like, it was a very slow burning process where I had to kind of work my way up the totem pole. And really it just kind of fell back to keeping my head up. And I want to read a little passage really quick. It's from the book, The Pivot Year. If you guys aren't familiar, it's essentially this little, it's not really, it's kind of acts as a devotional, but it's not really faith-based. It's more of like a mindset passage. It's like every single day it has a little like paragraph of just motivation and perspective that certainly can tie back into faith. But I really love it because it's super quick, and it's something I read every morning. And this week I read this passage, and I was like, this is so perfect for what I'm going to talk about on this episode. So it goes, I only got a clip of it, but it says, soulmate relationships are built. Dream careers are built. Resilient people are built, often with the pieces of their own greatest failures, mistakes, and mishaps. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going. And I loved that so much, because I feel like so oftentimes we look at someone else's life and we look at a relationship and we're like, I just want to find my soulmate, or I just want to find my dream career. I just want to find my strength. I want to find these things that other people have, but I don't have it. Newsflash, none of us do. There's no such thing as a soulmate relationship. There's no such thing as a dream career. And I say that because it's built. It takes time. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going. And I loved that, because that is something that God spoke to me so clearly in this process, where there were so many times where I wanted to give up. I look at my career now and I look back at pictures, or I look back 2 years ago, and I get emotional. I start crying because I've had so many moments where I've wanted to give up, and I've wanted to be like, no one prepped me for how hard this was going to be. No one prepped me for the resilience that it took for me to get to this point. And it just goes back to the self-doubt thing, because you don't have to be perfect. It's a journey. Like, God wants you to step one foot after the other. If you look so far ahead at someone else's relationship, or so far ahead at someone else's dream house or their career, it took years for them to get to that point. Nothing's ever handed to you in life. You have to work on it. And I just loved that, because it's oftentimes your failures and your mistakes and the times that you mess up and the doubts that you have that make you confident and that make you where you're supposed to be in life. It brings you that soulmate. It brings you that dream career. And so I just decided to embrace all the mistakes, because when I was working at Orange Theory, I was a coach and I had to be on the mic in front of a bunch of people. I made so many mistakes along the way. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I didn't have confidence. No one just starts these things right off the bat with a bunch of confidence on the mic, or no one starts their business with a bunch of confidence. You just learn along the way. And I've learned that with my relationship with Tyler and just what we've built over the past year. And I look at all the mistakes I've made along the way, and you just have to embrace it all. Like you really do have to wash your thoughts every day. And this is something that you have to be proactive about. Any self-doubt or comparison that comes your way, you guys, it is real, and I still deal with this. But you have to be so intentional with it. And this kind of feeds into insecurities as well. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I first want to speak to how to show up. So what do you do with this? So we know what self-doubt is. We know what insecurities are, and this journey that we're talking about. So like, what does that mean? So I was kind of doing some research on it, and I wrote down here, confidence is built after you show up, not before. I loved that. There's a lot of scripture about how the Holy Spirit oftentimes will intercede in your lowest moments. So like, if you have a hard conversation coming up, if you have a big presentation, if you know you're about to put the mic on and talk to a bunch of people at Orange Theory, it's completely natural and human to have scared moments where you don't feel confident, moments where you don't feel equipped. But there's scripture that talks about this. And let me see here, because I wrote it down. So I wrote down 2 Timothy. It talks about how God doesn't give you a spirit of fear. So anytime that you do feel fearful, it's not from God. But I thought I wrote down a verse here that talks about this, but I guess I didn't. There's another verse along the way that kind of talks about how the Holy Spirit will intercede and give you confidence when you need it, not before something happens. God calls unqualified people and equips them along the way. And that's kind of the whole point of stepping out in faith. So if you think about all these stories in the Bible where like Peter steps out into the ocean and he's fearful, he starts to sink, but then God saves him. But it's because he stepped out that he started walking on water. So that is just that same idea that, all of us feel insecure and fearful about certain things, but literally all God's asking you to do is step out in faith and trust him. And I promise you will figure it out from there. And that just gave me a lot of perspective when I was kind of writing out my script for this episode. And let me see here. I wrote down a lot of notes, you guys. I'm trying to organize my thoughts. So I also kind of wrote down a little bit about insecurity. So if self-doubt is loud in your life right now, I want you to know this. Your voice matters, your dreams matter, and you're more equipped than you think. Man's approval is always a losing game. So anytime you are thinking about your insecurities and you're looking to your left and to your right, and you're looking at all these other girls that look like they have it all together, none of that, man's approval, it's always a losing game. There's always going to be somebody better than you. There's always going to be somebody smarter than you. There's always going to be someone prettier than you, but nobody is you. You have a very unique story and a very unique ability. And a lot of times we think about like the market is really saturated and who's going to care what I think, or how am I ever going to get into this dream career? How am I ever going to find my person, or whatever scenario you want to think about right now? I always come back to this. Nobody is you, and you have a very unique story to tell, and that's impactful. And I kind of had those feelings when I started my business, because the fitness industry is saturated, but guess what? None of them are me. They don't have the same story I do. They don't have the same words. Sometimes your words and the way you articulate them hit someone different than anybody else's would, because you are a unique person and you have unique talents and gifts that nobody else in this world has. Only you have it. So just embracing that and stepping out in confidence in that. I got a question on my Instagram about insecurity. Someone asked if I have body dysmorphia or if I ever feel insecure. Absolutely, you guys. And I just want to speak to this really quickly because I'm going to break down some things that I'm insecure about because I just want to become human really quickly, that every single person struggles with this. No matter how perfect someone might seem from the outside, we all struggle with insecurities, but it really just comes down to what you do with it. And body dysmorphia is a really real thing. When you work in fitness, oftentimes the fitness people have the worst body dysmorphia out of anybody else because you are constantly in the image of your body. You're constantly looking at pictures and videos of yourself. You're constantly having to make sure that you are showing up in your best way for other people. And that's something that I struggle with. And there are moments where I have really bad days of body dysmorphia where I feel so ugly and I'm like, I don't want to if I take one photo, I'm going to freak out. And I won't. So the biggest lesson I've learned is that if I feel a certain way about myself or my body or anything, I have to put my phone down and snap out of it and pull out my journal or go on a walk or talk to a friend, because there are really low moments that I have when it comes to this. And I always have to remind myself of how, and that's another reason why I started my podcast, you guys, because at the end of the day, fitness and physical training is important, but it's not the most important thing. There is so much more to life than this. And in First Peter, it talks about how physical training, it's important, but it's not the most important thing. And if it starts to become number one in your life, of course you're going to feel like crap. Of course you're going to continue to nitpick yourself and idolize your dream body or idolize your beauty or your standards. And that is extremely unhealthy and doesn't lead anywhere, because newsflash, we're all getting older and every single day we are aging and our bodies are fleeting, and it's just not what matters. And what truly does matter is your internal beauty. And I know how cliche that sounds, but it is so true. And it's something that I have to remind myself of, because I do have insecurities, and I have always really struggled with my insecurity of my scoliosis. I hate the way that my midsection is just curved all the time and protrudes out. There's certain angles in videos I take where I look really weird or I look larger on one side and I have to turn a certain way for it to look a certain way. And I hated that. I've always hated that about my body. I used to always hate, and newsflash, still do, but working on it, my skin tone. I have a very pale, very, very fair skin tone. And so because I am so pale and naturally, and because I'm blonde, if I'm not wearing makeup, I look like a naked mole rat. And I... and I say that, and I laugh, but it's no one can argue me on this, because it's true. If I don't dye I get my eyebrows threaded and tinted, but if I don't do that, my face is completely washed out. I have zero color to my face. So when I'm not wearing makeup, I'm insecure about that, you guys. And it's something that is real, because I have a really hard time getting tan. If I lay out in the sun for 4 weeks, I will eventually get tan, but it takes me a long time. I've always been envious of girls that can go out in the sun and be bronzed immediately. That is not me. I don't have that type of skin tone. And so I'm just being real with you guys. I'm just listing off my insecurities to just be real and show you that everyone has them. And my skin tone has just always kind of been something I've been insecure about. I don't have a perfect complexion on my face. I have rosacea. If I'm out in the sun too long, I get blotchy skin. I get like redness all over. I don't have like this perfect skin tone where, you know, I feel comfortable enough to just flaunt it, you know? And of course, you know, people might argue me on that, but like that's just how I feel inside because I compare myself to other girls that have perfect skin on their face. And I'm like, well, that's just never going to be me, okay? I don't have, like, I struggle with acne. It's not terrible, but it's there sometimes, especially if I eat dairy or I'm on my period. Like, I just don't have this perfect complexion on my face. I've always been insecure about my stronger legs. I don't have like, you know, the supermodel legs. Like they're not like skinny. They've always just been more athletic. And that's something that I had to really embrace when I was in high school. It's something I was really, really insecure about in high school. And getting into fitness, you know, no matter how many miles I walk in a day or how many reps I do, like I don't have like, there's just different legs and I don't have the skinny ones. I have strong legs and that's beautiful to some people, but sometimes I do get insecure about that. And yeah, so I think that there's just things that we all wish we don't have. You always want what you don't have. I'm a part of the itty bitty titty committee. I've never had big boobs. And, you know, you look at all these other girls that get boob jobs and I struggled with that because I was like, well, does that mean I need to get one? Or, you know, and so I think that just one practice that I've learned along the way, and it's something that is beautiful to do in your own time, is write out things that you do like about yourself. And sometimes you can get so in our heads, especially with social media, because you're constantly comparing, you're constantly picking yourself apart. And I can get in those headspaces. And I think that I've come a long way over the years. The older I get, you know, I think it's the imperfections that make us beautiful, because if we were all perfect and we all looked the same and we all had the same skin tone, that wouldn't be any fun, you know? And I think that, you know, maybe one thing that you're insecure about someone wants, it's just how it goes. And I was actually listening to a podcast recently about this, and it kind of sparked my own things that I wrote out. But would you rather be the hottest girl in the room? You walk in and everyone just sighs and they grumble when you walk in, though, because they don't like you or they don't like your character or who you are. You're just like not fun to be around. I would rather be just an average Joe, but everyone lights up when you walk into the room. They feel like better when they leave an interaction with you. They feel lighter. They feel more encouraged. They feel more peaceful when they're with you. Like that is what matters. And that's something that you can write out. And that's something I've had to do. If you ever have a bad day or you have these moments, putting your phone down and writing out maybe a couple of things that you like about yourself. You can list out a few physical attributes that you like, or maybe someone has told you that they like and it stuck with you. And you could also write out a couple of internal things that you like, because again, at the end of the day, that is what lasts. And you know, we're only going to keep aging. Eventually, God willing, hopefully I get pregnant and my body is going to change. Our bodies are always evolving and they're always getting older. And so it's going to be something that I'm going to have to work on. I already know when I'm pregnant, it's like again, God willing, one day if that happens, but it's just like your body changes. And especially as a woman, I think that this is like such a big topic of conversation because it's something that we all battle with. And so to answer your question, these questions I get about body dysmorphia, insecurities, of course I struggle with that. I think every person does, and we should normalize it. But what do we do with it? It doesn't have to stop there, because it's something you do have to snap out of, you guys. I think a lot of my job is very much, it's like me, me, me. My whole business is about fitness and it's about nutrition, and my image is my business. And this is a slippery slope that you can fall into sometimes. And again, I want to share more about just the broadness of health, because all of these things go into it. If I'm got my nutrition down and I'm strength training 4 times a week and I'm like feeling good about my summer body, but I'm like completely messed up in the head and I'm like obsessing over everything, no, I'm not healthy. I have no say in sitting here and talking to you all about health and wellness if I'm not right in that way, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So that's why there's just so many other things that are more important than that. And yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on insecurity and body dysmorphia, self-doubt. And a couple of you have asked if I've ever lost my period. How do you keep your nutrition so snatched? I'm going to answer some of these questions that are a little bit unrelated, and then we'll kind of end it and circle back at the very end. Have you ever lost your period? No, I haven't. I've known girls that have lost their period due to extreme training and extreme diet restrictions. I've had friends that like ran track in college that lost their period during season. I've had other friends that lose theirs because they're marathon runners or they do high rocks. I've had friends that lose it because they completely like starve themselves. I've actually never lost mine. I've never really gotten to a point where I've been too lean to where my body can't. I've been late. I've been like 15 to 20 days late on my period, but that always kind of links back to stress for me. I can definitely notice when I'm stressed, I start to act as if I'm having my period, but it never comes, but then it'll come eventually. So for me, it's stress related if I ever am late. But luckily, knock on wood, I've never really had a problem with my cycle, and I want to continue to just live my life in a healthy way to where I am able to obviously have one, because if you don't have one for a certain amount of months, it's not good. It's not healthy, and you should definitely see a doctor if that's the case, because that's basically your body's way of telling you that something's not right. And there's a lot of factors that go into this. You know, it's stress, it's food, it's diet, it's lifestyle, it's habits, it's sleep. And so, yeah, it's a loaded question. But in my experience, I haven't. And so that is definitely something like important, because if I ever did lose a period, I would probably freak out and immediately go to the doctor, because I get scared about that stuff. How do you keep your nutrition so snatched? Are you strict on macros? I want to answer this question so honestly with you guys. Okay. So listen up. My nutrition is snatched because I have, how do I say this nicely? I don't want to be rude, but I kind of want to be. It takes practice. It takes time. I think like a lot of people will ask me questions like this, and I'm like, it's just because I've been disciplined enough to really look at everything I'm eating. And your body goes through a transition where if you are sitting here and you're listening and you're eating all the snacks, you're eating the peanut butter pretzels for lunch, and you're eating like white bread and all the processed foods and pizza constantly, and maybe you don't really have a problem with junk food, but maybe you're just constantly snacking and you're not giving your body enough nutrients and you're not focusing on whole foods, you have got to have a full factory reset, okay? And it's going to take probably a couple weeks for your body to adjust. So if you go from eating like that to eating eggs and meat and fruits and vegetables and oatmeal and all the healthy foods, you're going to freak out. You're going to go through a period where your body is having so many cravings and it's freaking out. It's trying to figure out what to do with your sugar cravings. Like, it's going to take some time, but after you get over that hump, it's just a matter of sticking to it. It's just a matter of kind of switching your brain to be like, this is how we're eating now. And now, y'all, I don't crave anything. I don't crave junk food ever. Can't remember the last time I've had, like, I don't sit here and like crave a Burger King and fries. But I'm saying I still eat that. Like, if it's the weekend and Tyler and I want to go get burgers at Burger Up and get some sweet potato fries, like, count me in. Like, I don't restrict myself to the point where I don't live, or I don't, like, I'll eat pizza. Like, I do those things. It's just like I'll have one or two meals like that a week, or one meal like that a week, and then I go back to my regular scheduled programming during the week. So it's like, it just takes time to make that transition. And now I've been doing this long enough to know what macros work for me and what like how to keep it like, I don't really consider my nutrition snatched and I'm strict on macros, because now I'm just like, this is just my life. This is my lifestyle. Like, I crave eggs in the morning. Like, I eat chicken and sweet potatoes and all of that sort of thing throughout the week. And that's like genuinely what my body craves, because it's like used to that and it's good for you. And so it's just going to take time for you. If you're really dedicated to it, it definitely just takes time to kind of understand what works, what doesn't, what your body needs, and honestly, just paying attention to your hunger cues. Because a lot of times I'm like, I'll track my macros maybe like once every 2 weeks or something, just to kind of gauge where I'm at. But a lot of times I'll just be like, I'm really craving like peanut butter and like fats right now, so like I'll eat, something with peanut butter in it. Or so just kind of paying attention to what you need. And someone, last one, do you miss Orange Theory at all? I do miss Orange Theory because of the social interactions. I miss it for the people. There are moments where I can get a little bit bored because I live on my own and I work for myself, and I can get stir crazy sometimes and I want interactions. So in that sense, I do miss it. Do I miss the like going in at 3:30 a.m. for my 5 a.m. classes? No, I don't. I do miss it sometimes. It was like a really fun job for me for those like 5 months that I did it. But I don't really miss it. Like, I don't think I would ever go back. It was so good for my confidence and really good for just learning so much about fitness. But yeah, it was fun to kind of finally be comfortable on the mic and make my own playlists and just like talking to people. Like, I loved talking to people that came in for the very first time, if they had like a first time class and they were like, they've never been to the gym before. And I had a really fun time talking to people that were like uncomfortable with going in the gym, because I was like, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy you took the step of like coming in here, because I know how scary it can be for people to come into the gym for the very first time. And I really enjoyed just talking with those first timers and like making them feel comfortable, answering questions, all of that sort of thing. But yeah, that's what I would say about Orange Theory. But to wrap up this episode, you guys, I just hope that you feel encouraged. I hope that you understand that self-doubt, insecurities, body dysmorphia, comparison are normal human emotions, but it's not how God intended it. And the devil can so oftentimes get in our head and make us feel like we are all alone and no one understands. And I hope that me kind of sharing some of my experience and my insecurities make you feel more human and make you feel more not alone, because it is normal. But I want to also encourage you that it's not normal in the sense of let's just all keep being insecure. No, that this is a daily battle. I hope that if you take one thing from this episode, I want you to know that this is a daily practice that even I have to do. I challenge you all to write out things that you like about yourself and write out reminders and put them on your mirror, and write out maybe a few Bible verses that you love, or maybe write out a few one-liners that maybe someone really close to you has said to you that they love about you. Like, I love how positive you are. I love how you are so funny. Write those things out and remind yourself of that, because we are all so unique and beautiful. And that is where, like, there's treasure in everybody, and you have to just write it out sometimes and remind yourself of what truly matters, because beauty is fleeting, and outwardly beauty is something that our culture can so oftentimes idolize, especially because I work in fitness. But I just want to remind you all that it's important, but it's not that important. There is freedom in knowing that we are all beautiful because we just are, and we have to really believe that about ourselves. And sometimes you might have bad days, but this is just kind of a roller coaster that we all kind of go through, and that I go through daily. But just remember that if you do feel yourself sinking, just always come back to that and come back to what matters, and remind yourself of these things and talk to a friend. And it's all really about setting boundaries at the end of the day when it comes to social media, when it comes to bad thoughts. You just have to be proactive and hold them captive. But I think that's all I have. And I hope you guys love this episode. Let me know if you guys want to hear more about these sorts of topics. I would love to hear feedback. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you next time.